Hi everyone. Today I am going to discuss my animal shelter and the storage portion of it with you. I have Ruby with me. I have talked about her before and it's been a little bit since I've given her some love, so I thought let's get her involved. Ruby darling is my favorite chicken. Got her from an Amish as an egg layer, and she is more of a pet at this point because she's kind of old. She doesn't really lay eggs well. But that's all about Ruby. Moving on about the shelter. I will flip the screen. So this is my animal shelter. My husband built it for me about 9 months ago. When we bought this house, it didn't have anything regarding outbuildings besides a small little garden shed. So he, I suppose, bye Ruby. He made this beautiful guy for me. I believe it is, gosh, an 8 by either 24 or 20. It's perfect for my animals, and I'll kind of go through the pros, the cons, what I like about it, what I don't like about it with you. Oops, I accidentally stopped the video instead of pushing the reverse button, so we'll combine the two videos. But there are certain parts about this shelter I love and other parts not so much. Like I said, I'll kind of go through those individually with you. So starting with the chicken coop, or just the whole building in general, you'll kind of notice it is built on a slant. So you'll see spots like this or that, kind of right there, and I'll show you more, where because it's in a slant, I'm constantly kicking up rocks against it, kind of like so, to fill in the gaps. Honestly, some large rocks or concrete would do the trick, but just something to be aware of when you are building a shelter on a slope. On a side note of that, having it on a slope is a huge plus, because then when it rains or the snow is melting, it will go away from the building. It will not pool in your building. So if I have to just kick rocks up, that's something I'm willing to deal with. So we'll start right here with the lock thing we have going on. So nice handles are really expensive actually, and when we bought this we were on a budget. So my husband bought these cute little latches, something you kind of see on a garden shed or a garden gate, and he put a cable up that goes into the building, and I'll show you on the other side how it works. And it just hooks right here. So when you pull this guy, it lifts, sorry, it's hard to see. It lifts that up so that you can get out from the inside. So when I shut my door, I am locked in here. I cannot get out. So I pull this little guy and ta-da, the door opens. So we've discussed my chicken coop in a previous video, so I'm not going to talk too much about that. But between each area, because I have the chicken coop, storage, and then the open animal shelter, I did like a mesh wire up here. It's to allow for ventilation, and it was cheaper because we already had the wire. For the chicken coop side, this works beautifully. They don't bother it. It just has worked really well for us. We will move over to a different area that's a problem. Here's another cable, same system. And then you can shut the door. It's locked, you can't get out. My cable just hangs out right here. I pull it and the door opens. It's worked really well for me. Hay storage, obviously, on both sides. Gosh, I'm sorry, my birds are real loud today. So this cable though, you know, these cables are not all that amazing sometimes, because there's something about this latch in my cable that does not stay shut. I've had all my animals in here in this little storage area eating all my feed, and it's caused a lot of problems. So yes, generally now it's shut, but if you wiggle it enough, it tends to open. Obviously it's not right now, so it's kind of defeating the purpose. So I did have to do a lock here. The crummy part about that is now if I want to get in here from the other side of this door, I can't. But see, there it came unlocked. So if I undo that, oops, it's open. All my animals can come say hi. That's not ideal. So there's just something weird about this lock, so we just improvised. I always got to kind of put it down. But this is just a cheap version of a lock that you can get for an animal shelter. Like I said, we were on a budget when we bought it, so this is what we went for. It's worked great for what we need. But kind of like I was saying, you know, you can see there's not supposed to be wood showing there. It's supposed to look more like over there. But the chickens, they're always scratching stuff away, and that causes problems. Same thing on this side. You can kind of see where that's going. Like I said, this is to show the upsides and the downsides. Obviously, this is a downside. But then we have this nice open storage area that has worked out beautiful. My little bucket for my horse, my bucket for my cow. We just, you know, made some sort of concoction for both that bucket and the bucket over there, and they are able to eat fine. The bad side is behind me. That lovely mesh wire that I used on the other side, my lovely horse has decided to push through. Big old hole there. He decided he was hungry one day. Went there, pushed all that aside. So we have to fix that. The rest of the animals don't bother it, probably because they're too short. But clearly, from our mistake, we learned wire mesh is not the trick. So my husband put up a piece of plywood. Show you right there. It's kind of ugly, but it'll get us through the winter times. But yeah, we'll probably have to do an additional piece up top just to keep the animals' heads where they belong, because clearly they don't listen very well. But once again, you know, you can see a hole there that sunlight is getting through, that the animals kind of kick away the dirt, and it's really not that big of a deal, but it can cause problems sometimes. Now we're going to talk about the rainwater system I have that's connected to my animal shelter. Actually, we'll go the other way. So, I have my tank of water. I need to fill it, obviously. Have a de-icer because it gets really cold here. We only have a 40-gallon tank, and let me tell you, that is not nearly enough. But my goats are little and they're housed with my big animals. So I need something small enough for the goats, but big enough to hold enough water for all of them. So I am unfortunately putting water and filling this every single day. Kind of crummy, but you deal with it. But for the little goats, oh, there's little Pepper. He's one of my babies. See, that's actually perfect what he just did there. I have this rock there so that they can step on that. Give them just that extra 6 inches or whatever it is to kind of hop up in there. I also have a rock inside. That is for 2 reasons. Reason number 1, I have had chickens in my water struggling to get out. That just kind of, once again, shows that chickens are not the smartest, brightest animal. But this gives them something to hop up onto and therefore hop out. Reason number 2, I guess I don't really have a reason number 2 except that the chickens will sometimes hop on that and then get water when it's low like it is currently. So they will sit on this instead of the side and dip their heads into the water and drink. Truly does not matter how you water your animals, as long as whatever system you have works for all the animals you have. Like I said, this is less than ideal to have to fill this with water, but my little animals and my big animals all get water at the same time. So speaking of the de-icer and water, I have a plethora of extension cords that goes all the way over to the house. Kind of annoying, but we got to do something to keep it unfrozen during the winter time. But another thing that we have done to help with the watering issue is the water collection system that my husband did for me. It goes through about a little over 3/4 of the building. You can see it ends right about there. So not that we get a ton of water here, but water goes on the building, into the spout, and then into my water tank. When it rains, I love it because that means I don't have to water my animals that day. You know, you hear things about laws in certain states that say you cannot collect water. Check out what your state or county or whatever you live in, check out what their laws are. But last I knew, as of recently-ish, you know, the last few years, there is no state that says you cannot collect any rainwater. So just check that out and see what you got going. Next I'm going to talk about electricity. Clearly, there's not an electrical pole right around me. Having an additional cord out here all year long would be real annoying. So I got solar lights. They are not the best solution or the cheapest solution, but it's worked out really well for what I need. I'll kind of show you what I have. Let's see. Okay. So that little guy up there, sorry, my door's getting caught in the wind. That little guy up there obviously collects my sun, goes into the chicken coop, and I just have it looped all around to give me good light. Oh, this darn door. Sorry. This is just one of those downfalls. There. Alright, so it goes through the chicken coop. You can kind of see it hanging over there. Comes around. Just cute little solar lights, nothing special. And then I have one little light bulb that goes into the shelter area and then through here. What I love about them is they don't get hot. I'm not saying that they would never cause an issue. So if you have a fire because of your solar lights, don't come back and say, well, Shay says they never get hot. But in my experience, I have not had issues with them getting hot. And that way I have light in here when I want to go do something. The issue is that that little pack I showed you only holds enough electricity to get it partway through the night. So when I'm doing animals at 6 a.m. when it's still dark out before work, there is no light out here, so I have to bring a flashlight. That little pack, however, does have a button that I can turn it to a switch instead of to automatically turn on when it gets dark outside. I just choose not to because it's in a really good location to collect sunlight, but not a good location to manually be switching buttons. But another upside to my solar lights is the egg production. There's a lot of controversy on that. You kind of got to do what you got to do, but it does extend the chicken's amount of light that they're getting in a day by sometimes nothing because, hey, it was cloudy, so it didn't collect anything and it never turns on. And other times it extends it for hours. And I feel like I've noticed a increase in egg production because of it. I guess I don't really have much else to add about my shelter. Some people may be asking about or thinking about price. I believe it cost us about $2,000 to $3,000 to build this. I know you can spend literally tens of thousands of dollars on these shelters. But luckily I have a husband that is really handy, and I'll show you some recycled material we used. So if you look up there, it's even got old nails in it, a few little pieces hodgepodge together. Those are recycled from when we did a renovation in the house, and we just needed something to kind of hold that little bit up top. Obviously for the basis of the structure, you need good stuff. You don't want to cheap out. But if you look for deals, you use recycled stuff. That is it is manageable to do it cheap. And I understand that a few $1,000s can be a lot for a lot of people, especially now. I mean, you can't even go to the grocery store and get a gallon of milk for less than a few dollars. Everything's just going up in price. But it can be done depending on what your priorities are and what your situation is. And then the other concept is obviously building it. My husband did 98% of it, and I love him dearly for that. I couldn't even begin to tell you what to do for that. But, you know, he learned a lot of things from YouTube. YouTube has resources like you wouldn't believe. Or just go to Google. There are resources. So the last thing I'm going to hit on are gates. So we have a very nice double-sided or double gate, I guess you could call it. But then there are animals that cause major problems with it. And I will show you what I mean by that. Such as this guy. My animals have, as you can see, literally bent my straight gate. It was straight when we moved here. So what we did, you know, the goats are just as much to blame as the cow. But we put barbed wire fence, just one layer, kind of wrapped it through. It's kind of hard to see mixed with the wire or with the gate. But we just wrapped it through here so that when they do decide, hey, I'm going to push against this gate and bend it on my mama, they get a little poke. And let me tell you, it seriously only takes a couple pokes and they have stopped. I'm not going to take the barbed wire fence down because I know as soon as it's down, they will start pushing on it again because that's how animals are. But it's worked really great to help save these gates. These kind of gates are, I think, close to $150 each. So, you know, like I've mentioned a few other times, things are expensive and they're only going up. So if you got to do something as simple as put some barbed wire on a gate to keep your animals from ruining it, do it. I think that's all I have for the rest of this video. Let me know if you have any thoughts or questions. Thank you.